The sun was setting over New Haven Colony, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. 10-year-old Carter threw a ball to his twin sister Grace near the outer agricultural domes. The air smelled like fresh wheat and the flowers their grandmother had planted years ago. It was a peaceful evening, like most evenings on this small human world at the edge of known space. Grace caught the ball and laughed. "You throw like a baby," she teased her brother. "Do not," said, but he was smiling. He always smiled when Grace laughed. They were twins, born only 4 minutes apart, and they had been best friends since before they could remember. Their father had died when they were 3 years old, killed in a mining accident on the colony's northern ridge. Their mother, Diana Carter, had raised them alone after that. She was a commander in the United Earth Fleet, and she spent months at a time away from home on her ship, the USS Horizon, but she always came back. She always called them on the communication screens when she could. And she always told them the same thing before every mission: be brave, be smart, take care of each other. "I will come home to you." She had been gone for 3 months now. The twins missed her terribly, but they knew she was protecting humanity among the stars. They were proud of her. "One more throw," Grace said. "Then we have to go back. Aunt Carol will be angry if we miss dinner again." Nodded and pulled his arm back to throw, but he never released the ball. Something in the sky caught his attention. Lights, bright lights moving fast, coming down from above the clouds. "Grace," he said quietly, "look." Grace turned and saw them too. At first she thought they might be shuttles from the colony's spaceport, but these lights were wrong. They were red and angry, and they moved in ways human ships did not move. The first explosion came from the direction of the colony's main settlement, then another, then another. The ground shook beneath their feet. "Run," grabbed his sister's hand, and they sprinted toward the nearest shelter, a small storage building at the edge of the agricultural dome. But they were not fast enough. A shadow fell over them. A ship, unlike anything they had seen before, descended from the sky and landed between them and the shelter. It was dark green and covered in sharp angles, like the shell of some monstrous insect. A door opened in its side, and tall figures emerged. The had heard stories about them. Everyone on the border colonies had. The empire was vast and ancient, spanning over 2,000 star systems. They were reptilian creatures, with scaled skin and cold yellow eyes. They looked down on humans the way humans might look down on insects, and they had a terrible habit of raiding human colonies to take slaves. 4 soldiers surrounded the twins in seconds. They wore black armor and carried weapons that hummed with energy. One of them, taller than the others, looked at and Grace with an expression that might have been curiosity or hunger. "Small ones," the tall said in broken human language. "Young and healthy, they will bring a good price." "Let us go," Grace shouted. She kicked at the nearest soldier, but her foot bounced off his armored leg without effect. The tall laughed. It was an ugly sound, like stones grinding together. "This one has fire, good. The masters like fire, it is more fun to break." Stepped in front of his sister. He was terrified, his heart beating so fast he thought it might explode. But he remembered what his mother always told them: be brave, be smart. "Our mother is Commander Diana Carter of the United Earth Fleet," said, trying to keep his voice steady. "If you take us, she will find you. She will make you sorry." The soldiers looked at each other and laughed again. "Human commanders," the tall one said. "We have crushed 100 human commanders. Your species is weak. Your mother is nothing." They grabbed the twins roughly and carried them into the ship. Inside, saw other humans from the colony, old people, young people, children even smaller than himself. They were all crying or silent with shock. They pushed the twins into a corner with the others and locked them in a holding cell. Through a small window, watched New Haven grow smaller as the ship rose into the sky. He saw fires burning in the settlement. He saw other ships lifting off, carrying more stolen humans. He saw his home disappear into the darkness of space. Grace was crying silently beside him, put his arm around her. "Mom will come," he whispered. "She always comes back, she promised." Grace nodded but could see the fear in her eyes. He felt it too. Their mother was far away, somewhere in deep space, probably not even knowing what had happened. How could she possibly find them? The ship traveled for many days through strange corridors of light that later learned were called jump gates. They were given small amounts of food and water, just enough to keep them alive. The guards ignored them mostly, except when they came to inspect the prisoners like farmers inspecting animals. Finally, the ship arrived at its destination. A massive planet appeared through the window, covered in gray cities and dark oceans. Prime, the heart of the empire. The prisoners were divided up. Some were sent to factories, some were sent to mines, but Grace caught the attention of a particular who had come to inspect the new slaves. He was tall even for his kind, dressed in rich robes of purple and gold. His name was Lord Thorn, and he was one of the most powerful nobles in the empire. Lord looked at the twins with his cold, yellow eyes. "These two," he said, "they look at me without bowing, they do not cry like the others." A servant beside him nodded nervously. "Should I discipline them, my lord?" "No," Lord smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "I like them. I will take them to my estate. It will be amusing to break their spirit myself." And so Grace Carter became slaves in the house of Lord Thorn. They were given rough clothes and put to work cleaning floors and serving food. They were told that they would never see their home again. They were told that their mother would never find them. They were told that they belonged to the empire now. But deep inside, both twins held onto the same thought, the same hope, the same promise their mother had made them 1,000 times. She would come for them. She always came back. Far away across the vast emptiness of space, a message reached Earth Command. A distress signal from New Haven Colony. 47 humans taken. Among them, 2 children named Grace Carter. And aboard the USS Horizon, Commander Diana Carter received the news that would change everything. Commander Diana Carter stood alone in her quarters aboard the USS Horizon, staring at the message on her screen. She had read it 7 times now. Each time, the words felt like knives cutting into her heart. New Haven Colony attacked. 47 civilians taken by raiders. Among the captured, Carter, age 10. Grace Carter, age 10. Her children, her bobbies, gone. Diana was 42 years old. She had served in the United Earth Fleet for 20 years. She had fought pirates, negotiated with alien species, and commanded ships through battles that should have killed her a dozen times. She was known throughout the fleet as one of the toughest officers alive. Men and women twice her size stepped aside when she walked through a corridor. She had never cried in front of another person since she was a little girl. Now, alone in the dark of her quarters, tears ran down her face. But only for a moment. Diana Carter wiped her eyes, took a deep breath, and felt something cold and hard settle into her chest. It was not grief anymore. It was something else, something dangerous. She walked to the bridge of her ship. "Set course for Earth," she told her navigation officer. "Maximum speed." Her first officer, a young man named Park, looked at her with concern. "Commander, are you all right? We received the report about New Haven. I'm so sorry about your—" "Maximum speed, Lieutenant," Diana said. Her voice was quiet, but something in it made stop talking immediately. 3 days later, the USS Horizon arrived at Earth. Diana went straight to Fleet Command and requested a meeting with Admiral George, the head of military operations. He was an old man with white hair and tired eyes, and he had known Diana since she was a young ensign. "Diana," he said when she entered his office, "I heard about your children. I cannot tell you how sorry I am." "I want a rescue mission," Diana said. "I need ships, soldiers, and intelligence on where they took them." Admiral sighed heavily. He had expected this. "Diana, please sit down." "I don't want to sit down. I want my children back." I understand. Believe me, I do. But what you're asking for is impossible. The Admiral stood and walked to a large map of the galaxy displayed on his wall. The Empire controls over 2,000 star systems. We control barely 300. Their fleet outnumbers ours 10 to 1. Sending a military force into their space would be an act of war that we cannot win. Then I'll go alone, Diana said. You would die, and your children would still be slaves. Admiral turned to face her. I'm sorry, Diana. We have tried diplomatic channels. They don't even acknowledge taking humans. They say that slavery doesn't exist in their empire, that these are lies invented by our government. There is nothing we can do. Diana stared at him for a long moment. I resigned from the fleet, she said finally. What? I resigned, just now, in my head. She pulled her commander's badge from her uniform and placed it on his desk. I am no longer an officer of the United Earth Fleet. I am just a mother whose children have been taken, and I am going to get them back. Admiral watched her walk toward the door. Diana, he called out, if you do this, I cannot protect you. Officially, I will have to denounce your actions. Diana stopped but did not turn around. I understand. But unofficially, the Admiral paused. There is a decommissioned stealth frigate at the lunar shipyard. It's called the Nightfall. It was scheduled for scrapping next month. Security there has been very poor lately, and I might accidentally leave some classified intelligence about patrol routes on an unsecured data pad in this office. Diana turned and looked at the old man. For the first time in days, something like hope flickered in her eyes. Thank you, she said. Don't thank me. I don't know what you're talking about. I never saw you today. This conversation never happened. Admiral sat back down at his desk. Now get out of my office, civilian, and bring those kids home. Diana spent the next 48 hours gathering her crew. She did not have to look far. Word spread quickly through the fleet that Diana Carter was putting together a mission, and volunteers appeared from everywhere. First came her old friend Cole, a man who had served as her weapons officer for 10 years. He was 50 years old, with gray in his beard and scars on his hands from a dozen battles. You think I'm going to let you have all the fun alone, he said when he showed up at the lunar shipyard. Then came Santos, the best pilot Diana had ever known. She had retired from the fleet 2 years ago after losing her leg in a shuttle accident. The doctors had given her a mechanical replacement, but the fleet had said she was no longer fit for active duty. I've been waiting for something worth flying again, said. Others followed. Engineers, soldiers, medics, intelligence specialists. Some came because they owed Diana their lives. Some came because they had lost family to themselves. Some came simply because they believed it was the right thing to do. In total, 23 people gathered aboard the Nightfall. It was a small ship, designed for stealth and speed rather than combat, but it was enough. On the night before they left, Diana gathered her crew in the ship's small common area. I want to be clear about something, she said. This mission is not official. If we are captured or killed, Earth will deny any knowledge of us. We will be alone out there. The enemy is powerful beyond anything we have faced before. Many of us might not come back. She looked at each of them in turn. If anyone wants to leave, now is the time. There will be no shame in it. Nobody moved. Cole spoke up. We're not here because the government sent us. We're here because you're Diana Carter and you asked us to come. That's enough for every person in this room. Santos nodded. Let's go get your kids, Commander. Diana felt something warm in her chest, cutting through the cold fury that had lived there since she received the news. She was not alone. She had never been alone. Then let's begin, she said. They think humans are weak. They think we are easy to break. They think they can steal our children and face no consequences. Her voice hardened. We are going to teach them how wrong they are. The Nightfall slipped away from the lunar shipyard that night, disappearing into the darkness between stars. It crossed into space 3 days later. And the Empire's nightmare began. 6 months had passed since and Grace Carter became slaves in the house of Lord Thorne. In that time, they had learned many things about their captors. They were proud creatures. They believed their empire was the greatest civilization in the galaxy. They believed that other species existed only to serve them. They looked at humans the way humans might look at animals in a zoo. Something to use, something to own, something beneath respect. Lord's estate was enormous, covering hundreds of acres on the outskirts of the capital city. Thousands of slaves worked there, cleaning the floors, tending the gardens, preparing the food. Most of them had given up hope long ago. They did what they were told and tried not to be noticed by their masters. But in Grace were different. Spent every day watching and listening. He learned the language by paying attention to conversations between the guards. He studied the layout of the estate, memorizing which doors led where and when they were locked. He noticed which guards were cruel and which ones were lazy. He found the weak points that nobody else thought to look for. Grace, meanwhile, made friends. She talked to the other slaves when the guards were not looking. She shared her food with the hungry ones. She comforted the ones who cried at night. Slowly, carefully, she built a network of people who trusted her, people who would help if the time ever came. Neither twin knew if their mother was coming, but they prepared as if she was, because that was what she had taught them to do. Be brave, be smart, take care of each other. One night while they were cleaning dishes in the kitchen, an old human slave named Henry sat down beside them. He had been in the estate for 30 years, longer than anyone else. His back was bent from decades of hard work, and his eyes were tired. "You two are planning something," Henry said quietly. "I can see it. The other slaves talk about you." And Grace looked at each other. They had been careful, but perhaps not careful enough. "Don't worry," Henry said. "I won't tell anyone, I just want you to know something." He leaned closer. "Strange things have been happening out in the Empire, ships disappearing, military bases going dark. The guards have been talking about it. They're scared." "Scared of what?" Grace asked. Henry smiled, showing missing teeth. "They're scared of a human. One human ship has been attacking the Empire for months. Nobody knows who it is or how they keep escaping, but every time they attack, they leave the same message." His heart began to beat faster. "What message?" "Return the Carter children. This ends when they are home." Grace grabbed her brother's hand. Tears filled her eyes. "She's coming," whispered. "Mom's coming." Far across the Empire, the nightfall struck again. The target was a supply convoy carrying weapons to the frontier. 12 transport ships, protected by 2 warships. It should have been safe. Nothing had attacked an Imperial convoy in this sector for 100 years. Commander Diana Carter watched the convoy through her ship's sensors. Her crew waited at their stations, silent and focused. Diana said, "Bring us in behind the lead warship. Stay in their sensor shadow." "Yes, Commander." Hands moved across the controls with perfect precision. The Nightfall glided through space like a ghost, invisible to enemy sensors. Cole powered up the weapon systems. "Ready on your command." Diana studied the convoy for another moment, planning the attack in her mind. In 6 months, she had destroyed or damaged over 40 ships. She had attacked supply bases, communication stations, and military outposts. Each attack was carefully planned, carefully executed, and carried the same message. They had started calling her the Mother. At first, it was a joke, a term of mockery, one human woman thinking she could fight an empire. But as the attacks continued and the damage grew, the mockery turned to fear. Now, commanders warned their crews about the Mother the way parents warned children about monsters in the dark. "All targets locked," reported. "Fire," Diana said. The Nightfall erupted with missiles and energy beams. The lead warship's engines exploded before its crew even knew they were under attack. The transport ship scattered in panic, but was already moving, putting the Nightfall in position for the next strike. It was over in 4 minutes, both warships destroyed, 8 transports captured by the small boarding teams Diana had trained. 4 transports escaped, but that was intentional. Diana always let some escape. She wanted them to carry stories back to the capital. She wanted the Empire to know fear. After the battle, Diana sent her message again, broadcasting it on every frequency they used. Return the Carter children. This ends when they are home. Then the nightfall vanished into the darkness, gone before any reinforcements could arrive. Back on Prime, Lord Thorn received the news of the convoy attack while eating dinner. He threw his plate against the wall in anger. "One ship," he roared at his advisors. "How can one human ship cause so much damage? Our fleet is the greatest in the galaxy." One of his advisors, a nervous named Secretary, spoke carefully. "My lord, our intelligence suggests that this human commander is no ordinary officer. She developed tactics that even our best strategists struggle to predict, and she seems to know things about our patrol routes that should be secret. Then find out how she knows and stop her." "We are trying, my lord, but she never attacks the same place twice. She never follows a pattern, and her ship is equipped with stealth technology that makes her almost impossible to track." Lord slammed his fist on the table. "I want her dead. I want her ship destroyed. I want her head mounted on my wall." "Yes, my lord," Secretary hesitated. "There is one other option." "What?" "The children she demands, the Carter twins. They are here in your estate, perhaps if we—" "No," Lord's voice was cold as ice. "I do not negotiate with humans. I do not give back what is mine. Those children belong to me, and they will stay mine. This human mother will learn what it means to challenge the Empire." But outside the dining room, pressed against the wall where they had been cleaning, and Grace heard everything. Their mother was coming, and they would be ready when she arrived. Diana Carter stood in the Nightfall's war room, surrounded by maps, data screens, and the faces of her crew. They had spent 6 months preparing for this moment. 6 months of attacks, 6 months of gathering intelligence, 6 months of building networks with smugglers and rebels who hated thee as much as she did. Now they knew where her children were. Lord Thorn's estate on Prime, the most heavily defended planet in the Empire. "It's suicide," Cole said, but there was no fear in his voice, just honesty. "The planet has 3 defense stations, a fleet of warships in orbit, and Lord's estate has its own private army." "I know," Diana said. "We have 1 ship and 23 people." "I know." Santos leaned forward in her chair. "So what's the plan, Commander?" Diana smiled. It was not a warm smile. It was the smile of a predator about to hunt. They think like soldiers. They prepare for military attacks. Big fleets, frontal assaults, things they can see coming. They don't know how to fight a mother who wants her children back. She pointed to the map of Prime. "For 6 months, we haven't just been attacking randomly. We've been testing their defenses, learning their response times, finding their weaknesses. And we've been making friends." Friends asked. "Rebels, slaves who want freedom, smugglers who know secret routes onto the planet. For every attack we made, we also made 10 contacts. People who owe us favors, people who hate Lord, people who are waiting for a signal." Diana tapped the map and new information appeared. Secret tunnels under the estate, guard rotation schedules, communication codes, everything they needed. "Tonight," Diana said, "we're not attacking the planet. We're slipping in while everyone is looking the other way, and we're going to burn Lord's world to the ground." On Prime, night had fallen over Lord's estate. The guards walked their usual routes, bored and sleepy. Nothing ever happened here. The estate was too well protected, too far from the fighting that was happening on the Empire's borders. In the slave quarters, Carter lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Beside him, Grace was pretending to sleep, but he knew she was awake too. They had been waiting for months. Every night they wondered if this would be the night. A soft tap came at their window. sat up immediately. The tap came again. 3 short, 2 long. It was a code. A code his mother had taught him years ago when he was small, in case they ever got separated and needed to find each other. His heart nearly stopped. He crept to the window and looked out. In the darkness, he saw a figure dressed in black. The figure raised a hand and made a signal, another code from their childhood. Grace whispered, shaking his sister. "It's her, it's Mom." Grace was at the window in seconds. When she saw the figure outside, she had to cover her mouth to stop herself from screaming with joy. The window opened silently. Diana Carter climbed through and wrapped her arms around both her children at once. She held them tight than she had ever held anything in her life. Tears ran down her face, but she made no sound. "I told you," she whispered. "I always come back." "Mom," Grace sobbed quietly. "I knew you would come, I knew it." "We have to move," Diana said, pulling back. Her face became serious, the face of a commander again. "The estate will be in chaos soon. Stay close to me and do exactly what I say. Can you do that?" Both twins nodded. Diana touched her earpiece. "All teams begin." Outside, the night exploded. Bombs went off at 3 different points around the estate's walls. Fires erupted in the guard barracks. The communication tower sparked and went dark, cut off by saboteurs who had been waiting for months for this signal. Alarms screamed, but nobody knew which direction the attack was coming from because it was coming from everywhere at once. Diana led her children through the chaos. She moved like a shadow, avoiding guards, using paths that the slave network had shown her. Twice, soldiers appeared in their way. Twice, Diana dealt with them before they could raise an alarm. The twins had never seen their mother fight before. It was terrifying and beautiful at the same time. They reached the outer garden when a voice called out behind them. "Human!" Diana pushed her children behind a statue and turned. Lord Thorne stood 20 feet away, dressed in battle armor, holding an energy sword that glowed red in the darkness. Behind him were 6 of his personal guards. "So you are the mother," Lord said. "The human who has been causing so much trouble for my empire. I expected someone larger." "Let us pass," Diana said. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were deadly. "And you might live through tonight." Lord laughed. "You are on my planet in my estate, surrounded by my army, and you threaten me. You humans are even more foolish than I thought." "You took my children," Diana said. "Do you know what that means to a human?" "It means nothing. They were weak like all your kind, easy to capture, easy to break." Diana took a step forward. The guards raised their weapons, but Lord waved them down. He wanted to handle this himself. His pride demanded it. "You studied our ships," Diana said. "You studied our weapons, you studied our numbers, but you never studied us. You never understood what makes humans dangerous." "And what is that?" Lord asked mockingly. "We protect our own." Diana moved. Lord was fast, faster than any human should have been able to match. But Diana had spent 20 years fighting aliens who were bigger, stronger, and faster than her. She knew how to use their arrogance against them. The fight lasted less than a minute. Lord's energy sword cut through the air where Diana had been standing, but she was already somewhere else. She struck at his joints, his weak points, the places where his armor did not cover. He swung wildly, growing angry, growing sloppy. When he finally fell, Diana stood over him with his own sword in her hand. "My children were never yours," she said, "and now this ends." Lord Thorne, one of the most powerful nobles in the Empire, died on his knees in his own garden, killed by a human mother who had crossed a galaxy to bring her family home. Diana dropped the sword and turned to her children. "Let's go, the ship is waiting." The 3 of them disappeared into the night, leaving fire and chaos behind them. The nightfall raced through space with 3 dreadnoughts chasing close behind. Alarms screamed on the bridge. Damage reports came in from every section. The ship was faster than anything they had, but it was not built for a straight fight against warships. Diana Carter stood at the command station, watching the tactical display. Her children sat behind her, strapped into emergency seats. They had made it off Prime, but they were not safe yet, not even close. "They're gaining on us," Santos reported from the pilot's seat. Her fingers flew across the controls, squeezing every bit of speed from the damaged engines. "Shields at 30%, Cole added. "One more good hit and we're finished." Diana calculated distances and times in her head. The border with human space was still 2 hours away at maximum speed. The dreadnoughts would catch them in 90 minutes. Mom said quietly, "Are we going to make it?" Diana turned to look at her son. He was trying to be brave, trying to hide his fear, just like she had taught him. Beside him, Grace held her brother's hand, her face pale but determined. Diana smiled. "We're going to make it, I promise." She turned back to her crew. "Adjust course by 4 degrees starboard. Prepare all remaining missiles." "Commander, we only have 6 missiles left. That's not enough to stop 3 dreadnoughts." "We're not trying to stop them, we're trying to slow them down." Diana touched her communication panel. "All hands, this is the commander. In approximately 90 minutes we will reach the border. Until then we fight. Every second we gain is a second closer to home. I know you're tired, I know you're hurt, but you did not come this far to give up now. For the children, for each other, for humanity." A chorus of voices responded from throughout the ship. For humanity. The next 90 minutes were the longest of Diana's life. The Nightfall twisted and turned through asteroid fields and nebula clouds, using every trick new to stay ahead of the dreadnoughts. Fired missiles at precise moments, not to destroy the enemy ships but to force them to slow down and evade. The crew worked without rest, patching holes, fighting fires, keeping the ship alive by sheer willpower. The dreadnoughts fired beam after beam at the fleeing ship. Most missed, some didn't. The Nightfall lost its rear sensor array, then its secondary engine, then half its shield generators. Each hit brought them closer to destruction. But each hit also brought them closer to home. And Grace watched through the bridge windows as lights flashed and explosions bloomed in the darkness behind them. They held hands and did not speak. There was nothing to say. Either they would make it, or they wouldn't. 10 minutes to the border, announced. Her voice was strained but steady. "Dreadnoughts are charging their main weapons," said, "if they fire at full power." He didn't need to finish the sentence. Everyone knew what would happen. Diana gripped the edge of her command station. They were so close, so close. 5 minutes to the border. The dreadnoughts' weapons began to glow as they charged. In seconds, they would fire, and the Nightfall would become dust and memory. "Commander," one of the crew shouted from the sensor station, "I'm picking up something at the border, multiple contacts, big ones." Diana looked at the display. What she saw made her heart stop. Waiting at the edge of human space was the entire Third Fleet of the United Earth Navy. 40 warships arranged in perfect battle formation. At the center of the formation was the largest ship Diana had ever seen, the UES Constitution, the flagship of Admiral George. A message came through the communication system. The old admiral's voice filled the bridge. "This is Admiral to all vessels. The Third Fleet is currently engaged in routine training exercises at this location. Any vessel that crosses the border will be considered a hostile invader and dealt with accordingly." Behind the Nightfall, the 3 dreadnoughts slowed, their weapons powered down. The Nightfall crossed the border. They were home. 2 weeks later, Diana Carter stood in the United Earth Parliament building, surrounded by reporters, politicians, and military officers. Her children stood beside her, dressed in new clothes, looking healthy and whole for the first time in months. The ambassador, a tall and nervous creature named Lord, approached the podium. He had come to negotiate a formal peace treaty. After the events on Prime and the humiliation of the Third Fleet's show of force, The Empire had decided that humans were more trouble than they were worth. On behalf of the Empire, Lord said, reading from a prepared statement, we agree to cease all raids on human colonial worlds. We agree to return all human prisoners currently held within our borders. We agree to recognize human space as sovereign territory. There was applause from the human side of the room, but Diana did not clap. She simply watched, her face showing nothing. After the ceremony, Lord approached her. His yellow eyes studied her with something that might have been fear or respect or both. I must know, he said quietly. We studied your weapons, your ships, your numbers. Everything suggested that humans were a minor species, easily controlled. We were wrong. What did we miss? What makes humans so difficult? Diana thought about her children. She thought about her crew, the people who had followed her into the heart of enemy territory. She thought about Admiral, who had risked his career to help her. She thought about the slaves who had risked everything to provide information. She thought about all the humans throughout history who had fought impossible battles for the people they loved. You missed the only thing that matters, Diana said. Humans don't fight for territory. We don't fight for resources. We don't fight for power or glory. We fight for each other. And there is nothing in this universe more dangerous than a human protecting their family. Lord nodded slowly, as if understanding something he had never grasped before. Then he turned and walked away, back to his ship, back to his empire, carrying with him a lesson that would be taught in schools for centuries. Never take a human's children. 5 years later, Commander Diana Carter watched her twin children graduate from the United Earth Fleet Academy, had specialized in intelligence and tactics. Grace had specialized in diplomacy and relations. Both of them wore the uniform proudly, ready to serve humanity among the stars. After the ceremony, they stood together on a balcony overlooking the academy grounds. Nervous, Diana asked them. A little, Grace admitted. Excited, said. Diana put her arms around both of them. You're going to do great things, both of you, I know it. Mom, Grace said, we never thanked you properly for coming to get us, for never giving up. Diana shook her head. You don't need to thank me, I'm your mother. There is nowhere in this galaxy I wouldn't go for you. There is nothing I wouldn't do. That's what family means. Smiled, I think they understand that now. Yes, Diana said, looking up at the stars. I believe they do. And somewhere across the galaxy in the great halls of the Empire, the story of the mother was still told. A warning, a lesson, a reminder of what could happen when you underestimated humanity. Some species fought for territory, some fought for resources, some fought for glory. Humans fought for love. And that made them the most dangerous species in the galaxy.